Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So I just watched The Mandalorian season 2. Let's talk about it. So The Mandalorian season 2 has finally come to an end, and oh my goodness. Oh my god. Wow. What? Listen, I'm not even the biggest Star Wars fan. Okay, some of you guys will already know this from my previous videos. Star Wars is a great franchise. It's really fun. I'm more of a casual fan, okay? But let me tell you, during this finale, I could barely breathe. I felt suffocated. The tension was real. I was so invested in this finale. Oh my goodness. Let me just... We're going to be going through my thoughts on the season finale and on the season overall. But just a friendly little reminder first off, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and turn on your notifications so that you can be told when I upload next. And also be warned that this is going to be a spoiler review. We're going to be going through the things that happened throughout season 2. So if you haven't watched it yet, then just be warned, you're going to get spoiled in this video. Without further ado, now let's get into it. So first off, right off the bat, let's go through the events of the finale, because holy crap was that a finale. That was a season finale. The season finale follows off on the events of the previous episode where we saw the capture of Baby Yoda. Moff Gideon got his grimy little hands on Baby Yoda. Imagine the audacity. Imagine the goal of it all, because he's out here thinking in the Star Wars world, he's thinking that his enemy is the Mandalorian. He's thinking that by taking Baby Yoda, he's made more of an enemy of him specifically. But what's really happening is that half the world, the real life world, is looking at Moff Gideon like, oh, you're gonna die. You're gonna die. You deserve what's coming to you. Because all of us were Mando in that message at the end of that episode when he said, I'm coming for you because Baby Yoda means the world to me. When he said that, he was speaking for us all. I just felt so invested in this episode because I knew there had to be a way out of this. There was no way that harm was going to come to that baby. So there had to be a way out. And of course, in order to do this, Mando decides to assemble a team. He already had Boba Fett and Fennec on board, and then he also got Cara Dune at the end of last week's episode. And then in this episode, we see that he manages to land on a planet where he reunites with some fellow Mandalorians, including Bo-Katan herself. I was so excited. I knew it was coming, but I was so excited to see it because I love me a good team up, and I knew that the action sequences would be sick, and they were, but we'll get to that. So they end up reuniting and forming a team so that they could get Baby Yoda. Now, Bo-Katan is mostly there to get that dark saber because she knows that it's in the possession of Moff Gideon, and she needs that dark saber in order to claim power over Mandalore. So that's pretty much why she's there. So she's there to support the team, but she has her own mission in mind. So ultimately, they do end up getting on Moff Gideon's ship after they get some information out of Dr. Pershing, who lets them know what to do in order to get into that ship, and they manage to pretend to be, part of the Empire and send a distress signal and pretend to be attacked by themselves so that they can be let on. So then you have a huge action sequence take place in the ship where you have these useless stormtroopers trying to attack against Bo-Katan. You stand no chance. You're literally just embarrassing yourselves and the Empire. You stand no chance against Bo-Katan. Are you silly? In this whole sequence, you have these badass female characters fighting against these stormtroopers with Bo-Katan and Fennec and Cara Dune and her friend Koska, I believe, is the one that came with Bo-Katan. They were just incredible. They were so good. I've seen some people say that, this is the better version of the Avengers Endgame moment with all of the A-Force female Avengers. I personally wouldn't even compare the two. I see no problem with having more than one badass female moment. Like, it's really not a competition, guys. Like, maybe some people dislike the one in Avengers Endgame. That's fine. But let's not try to constantly compare any female moments or badass female characters that we get, because that's really not the point. Anyways, I absolutely love the fact that the kind of elite force that Mando had created in order to save Baby Yoda were mostly made up of these great female characters, and it felt very organic because they had unique skill sets to bring to the table, and it was very much earned. That every single second of that screen time was earned. So they stepped up to the plate. I loved seeing them fight against those dumbass stormtroopers. And And I love that entire action sequence. Already we were off to a great start. Already I was on the edge of my seat. Like, you get Baby Yoda by any means necessary. When I saw every single stormtrooper go down, I was like, yup, falling down like bowling pins. Absolutely, that's what they deserve. So as the female characters were taking care of business with the stormtroopers, Mando was kind of going off of his own route to try and find the dark troopers. Now, these guys were pretty badass looking. Okay, they are very intimidating. These dark troopers are not to be messed with. We already saw that in the previous episode, where they were the ones that snatched Baby Yoda away from us. I mean, from Mando. So Mando makes it his priority to take those guys down because he knows that they mean business. But unfortunately, he only just managed to get there on time because Moff Gideon already gave the direct order to have them be, I guess, activated. So one manages to pass through those doors. That moment where one of those dark troopers manages to like open the door and go through and attack Mando, that was insane. That was scary. Am I the only one who was spooked by those dark troopers? The red eyes with the all black attire. But that whole sequence where Mando was fighting against one of them, like, it was such a battle. It was so hard for him to even get through. I think that scene was there to illustrate just how impossible it would be for the gang to fight all of them. Like, seeing how hard it was for Mando to take down one made it clear that there was no way that they would be able to get out of that alive if they had to fight them all. So I love the fact that he managed to kind of jettison them out of the ship through this kind of door that they had. At first I asked myself, like, why would you even have that door there? But then, of course, because they fly, they need an easy access point in order to get out of the ship when they need to, and that's exactly what happens. They end up flying and later on coming back. But in the meantime, you see Mando finally finding Baby Yoda. He's finally reunited with him, and it is just so heartbreaking seeing Baby Yoda in this vulnerable position. Like, we hate to see it. We absolutely hate to see it. And what we hate even more is to see Moff Gideon holding the Darksaber right above Baby Yoda's head in this threatening manner. This guy has no heart. This guy has no morals. What do you mean you are handcuffing a baby? Are you joking? I got so irrationally upset at this scene. I was like, this is just too much. He's waving around this Darksaber, which is what Bo-Katan is after, funnily enough. Now, they didn't see Moff Gideon in that part of the ship that they were at. I don't know the name. I don't know the name of what that is called, but Mando manages to find him and they have this little exchange where for a second I believed him. Of course I was fooled. I never stood a chance because it's Giancarlo Esposito just acting the hell out of that scene. So of course I was fooled into thinking that he was actually going to let them go. Dummy me. And so they end up having a fight where this great action sequence ensues where Moff Gideon is using his Darksaber, which was already established can cut through anything apart from Beskar, which is what Mandalorian's suit of armor is made of, as well as his stick, what's it called? His spear, that's it. So he's using his spear against the Darksaber, and it's this really cool action sequence. But ultimately Mando does end up taking down Moff Gideon, and he manages to get the Darksaber off him, and that he drags him to the brig. Like, what's that place called where everyone is just kind of chilling and the controls are there? I can't remember. But he manages to get there where he sees Bo-Katan, and Moff Gideon has this like smirk on his face that just it angered me because I knew something was coming up. I knew something was up when he was just smiling. Like, he looked too pleased to be there. And of course there's a turn of events because it's revealed that due to the fact that Mando was the one who took him down and took hold of that Darksaber, it technically means that he has now a legitimate claim to the throne of Mandalore. He can be the ruler of the Mandalorian people, which is something that Bo-Katan wanted because she explicitly said that, you know, as long as Moff Gideon surrenders to me, I don't care what happens to him. But now it seems that he has surrendered to the Mandalorian. So there seems to be a tension that's been set up there, but that's not really resolved in this episode, and hopefully we'll see a resolution to that in the next season. But anyways, things just continue to get worse. Things continue to get worse because, oh, remember how I said the dark troopers can fly? Turns out they've been flying just fine through space. They've managed to find their way back into the ship, and now they're presenting themselves to be a real threat because all of them have been let out, and the only thing standing in their way between them pulverizing, just completely eviscerating the entire crew is this door, is this set of metal doors. And so they promptly start to bash into this door. They're just kind of punching into it, and it is just such a high tension moment. The tension in this episode overall was just through the roof, but during that sequence where they're just kind of bashing, the gang are basically just sitting ducks in that moment. Like, they're just waiting to die because they see those dark troopers. There's no way that they can take them down down on their own. But it turns out, that they're not on their own, because we see this very familiar ship. Now, once again, I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, but even I was like, I've seen that ship somewhere before. I wasn't able to identify the exact ship, but I knew a Jedi was coming. I absolutely knew that a Jedi was going to answer Baby Yoda's call. And so when the ship lands, I believe it's called like is it an X-Wing? Maybe I made that up. I don't know. But then the X-Wing lands into the Imperial ship, and after a few moments, we get the appearance of this hooded Jedi. Out comes this lightsaber, this green lightsaber. I was trying to remember, like, who has a green lightsaber? I don't know. In that moment, I wish I knew more about Star Wars, but out comes this green lightsaber, and this guy just eviscerates all of these dark troopers. It's a sight to behold. It's a thing of beauty. And when I first saw the Jedi, I actually thought it was going to be this character called Ezra from Star Wars Rebels. I don't actually watch Star Wars Rebels, but I heard people talking about this character when they were talking about Ahsoka Tano, and maybe he would be the Jedi that would answer Baby Yoda's call. But no, they didn't even go for this Ezra character. They went straight to the top. They went straight to the movies, and they gave us Luke Skywalker himself, or at least his CG self. Wow. wow. I couldn't believe it. Luke Skywalker himself makes an appearance in The Mandalorian. Like, it just feels like it's been legitimized. Like, it feels like it's been welcomed into the immediate family. Like, it no longer just feels like a superfluous spin-off. Like, it feels like it's just this much closer to the Star Wars family for me because of the appearance of Luke Skywalker. It changes everything. It changes everything. And I was already having a fun time, by the way. I don't think that this finale rests on the appearance of Luke Skywalker by any means, because it very much stood on its own as an incredible episode already before he'd even made an appearance. But the fact that it turns out to be him taking down all of those dark troopers, like, just mwah. What can I say? I have to acknowledge excellence. Now, I will say that the CG on Luke was a little bit rocky, and actually a split second before he revealed himself, I did guess that it was Luke because it didn't look like the chin of Ezra, the character from Rebels. I did guess that it was Luke a split second before he removed his hood, and I actually expected to see Sebastian Stan's face under that hood because it makes sense. The guy looks like him. The guy looks like Mark Hamill, so why not? But I kind of understand why they didn't, because otherwise, like, he doesn't look identical to him. So perhaps people would guess, like, oh, is it another Jedi? Like, is it Luke's cousin? Like, what's going on there? So I understand why they were like, let's just make it Luke, because this is the big reveal, this is the big moment, and we don't want anyone second guessing whether or not it is actually Luke. But I still think that he could have just stood there and they could have CG'd his face to make him look more like Mark Hamill, but I don't know if he'd be down for that. The point is, we got a CG Mark Hamill, and the CG was a little bit rocky, which was a little bit unfortunate. They used him very, very sparingly though, so it wasn't like it was too heavy-handed, but that didn't even matter in that moment, because we got the moment. We got the moment where finally the Mandalorian's job, his mission, has been complete. He has managed to reunite Baby Yoda, or Grogu, as his name actually is. He's managed to reunite Grogu with his people, with the people that he actually came from, that he was taken from, and now all he has to do is let go. And by God, is that moment just so emotionally impactful. That Pedro Pascal's performance in this moment, literally get out of here. Literally give him his Emmy and go, because it is absolutely incredible. First of all, Baby Yoda, the actor, I guess, but in that moment, he was looking up at his father like, what do you mean you want me to go? Like, he wasn't about to leave until Mandalorian gave him his approval. And so in that moment where Baby Yoda kind of just, says in his own way that he wants to see his face, and the Mandalorian removes his helmet in that moment, and it's just all emotion from Pedro Pascal. He is acting the hell out of that scene, because he's acting against a puppet. Like, let's remember this. He's acting against a puppet, but he sold it. He sold it like no one's business. And it was a very familiar scene to one that I've seen earlier this week, without giving too much away for Wonder Woman 1984. But let's just say that he's good. He's good at this. Whatever this is, he's very, very good at scenes like this, because he absolutely sold me on it. There wasn't a dry eye in the room, I'm sure. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. What a beautiful moment, because all of these two seasons have culminated to this very moment. And you can see even Luke himself was like, uh-oh, like there's a connection between you two. He's basically your son. I'm not just gonna grab him and go like Moff Gideon did. I'm actually going to wait for you to give your approval so that he would actually willingly leave, because he's not going to otherwise. And so the Mandalorian has to give his approval himself. He has to tell him to go to learn what he needs to learn so that he doesn't become threatened again in the future, so that this doesn't become an unstoppable cycle. And so he leaves with Luke in Luke's arms. I never would have predicted that that would be the end of this part of their story. Like, I never would have predicted that the season finale would give us this moment. But it's just, oh wow. Now that we've gotten to the end of the finale, because I truly think the finale, first of all, was the best episode. But the series overall has just been phenomenal. Every single episode has progressively, for the most part, been getting better and better and better. What an incredible second season. I would say that the only 2 weak links that we've gotten this season has been episode 2, which was directed by Peyton Reed, and it was that spider one, which I really didn't want to mess with. And then we had episode 6, which is the episode that Baby Yoda actually gets taken in. Oh yeah, that was the episode before. I referred to it as the previous episode, but it was actually the episode before the previous episode. But that episode to me wasn't the best directed, but I did read that it was a very last minute thing to have Robert Rodriguez on board. So I'm kind of giving him a little bit of a benefit of a doubt, because it did feel very much like a fan film to me. There was something about the lighting that lacked any atmosphere. There was something about the environment that just felt very sparse. For a Star Wars film, I felt like the stormtroopers kind of looked ridiculous in that blinding light of the sun. So it was a little bit off to me. It felt a little bit cheaper than the usual episodes do, certainly in comparison to the excellence of the finale. And just in terms of the directors that have been involved in season 2, I would say that Robert Rodriguez would be pretty much at the bottom. I would have also said that Peyton Reed would be right there with him, but then I found out that he directed the finale episode, and I was like, whoa. That was crazy. What a redemption arc for the director himself. Like, from that spider episode that was very much filler and very much unnecessary to this. He directed this. I need him to put like at least half of the energy that he put in to this episode into the Ant-Man franchise. Like, I need him to do that immediately, because now we see there's no excuse. He can do this. To be fair, like, the series is written by Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, so maybe when he's not writing, he can really deliver something, but he knocked it out of the park. Like, that finale definitely helped redeem him as a director in this franchise. But if I was to continue my ranking of the directors for this season, I would put Bryce Dallas Howard and Rick Famuyiwa right at the top, and then maybe in the second tier I would put Jon Favreau for the first episode of season 2, which was excellent but ultimately of little consequence to the main story. I would also put Carl Weathers in that similar tier with Jon Favreau. Again, both episodes were very well directed. It's just that in terms of the long-lasting impact of them, it's kind of, you know, diminishing returns because we've moved on to greater things. But Rick Famuyiwa's episode, especially with Bill Burr's performance, like, that one really stood out to me, because that episode was really the only one that delved into more profound, more meaningful messaging. If I was to identify one shortcoming of the series The Mandalorian, it would be that it doesn't really have a lot to say, a lot of meaningful things to say, other than in relation to the Mandalorian himself and his relationship to Baby Yoda, and how that mirrors a very, you know, single father dynamic that is very heartwarming and has connected with millions of watchers. Other than that angle of this story, I would say that when it comes to the wider Star Wars verse, we don't really get a lot of, you know, meaningful messaging behind it, until of course we had that conversation between Bill Burr's character and the Mandalorian, and he went on this kind of tirade about essentially like religion. Like, am I crazy? Or was this a tirade about religion and how people are victims on both sides of a war, and you can't really discount the other side simply because they're your enemy, because they are also victims of their circumstance, and they're just following orders, and they just want to better their lives, and they're following a cause that they believe will see to the betterment of their lives and of their families' lives. Now, whilst I understood the messaging of that and the intent behind it, and I also appreciated the presence of any messaging in this series, because like I said, it's very few and far between here, I will say that I did have a few questions and queries about the whole they're just following orders narrative that Bill Burr seemed to be suggesting. Like, I think if you were to explore this topic, it deserved a little bit more elaboration, a little bit more depth, because it's a very complex topic. But like I said, I do think that the best part of this series is its central focus of the relationship between the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda. This father-son relationship and seeing it blossom has just made for some of the best moments in the series, especially those, you know, cute, adorable moments that are shared between the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda, where he's just trying to teach him basic things, basic manners, okay, with Baby Yoda eating other people's eggs and all of that. Just those small moments that establish their relationship and how it has progressed from the events of season 1. I think they were just so charming and endearing and made for really light-hearted moments in an otherwise pretty serious show. And I also think that another benefit of this show is just the addition of these great characters, like I said, and also the introduction of characters from other Star Wars properties like the Clone Wars and Rebels to really flesh out the live action Star Wars universe and also kind of incorporate the characters from these other properties to make it all feel more connected, which is a very Marvel thing for Star Wars to do. But I especially love the introduction of Ahsoka Tano and Bo-Katan. They were my two favorite new characters this season. I absolutely loved them. I think Rosario Dawson knocked that role out of the park. She absolutely deserves her own spin-off series. And speaking of spin-off series, we did get an end credit scene with Boba Fett, and he ends up in this planet and talking to some guy. I guess he's like a bad guy in like the black market kind of thing. Like he's kind of like a Jabba the Hutt, but not. But anyway, he takes over. He takes over for him. Okay, he ends up killing him and taking over for him. And we find out that there's going to be a spin-off series starring Boba Fett called The Book of Boba Fett. Now, this is interesting because it's also said that this is going to be coming out in December 2021. Now, if you've watched my Disney Investor Day video talking about the Star Wars announcements, you'll know that they didn't really announce anything when it came to Boba Fett, although people already knew that Boba Fett was currently filming, which would make it, you know, just in the right time for it to be released this time next year. Now, what was interesting is that there were quite a few reports saying that there were issues on the set of Mandalorian season 2 surrounding Pedro Pascal and his want for more screen time with his actual face. So people were speculating that perhaps he would be made out of the equation altogether for season 3 of The Mandalorian. And after having seen this end credit scene where it is revealed that, you know, this series is going to be coming this time next year, I hesitate to think that maybe they'll be replacing the character of the Mandalorian with Boba Fett. I don't know. I don't know, but it does seem unlikely that Disney would release The Mandalorian season 3 and the Boba Fett show at the same time. I just don't think that would be a smart move on their part because they want the focus to be on one show at a time, especially for their service to keep subscribership. So I really hope that's not the case though, because I like Boba Fett, but I liked him in the capacity that he worked in season 2. Like, I don't need more Boba Fett personally. Like, I liked how he just came in and out, he helped out the gang, but he wasn't a huge presence in the finale episode, and I was absolutely fine with that. To replace the Mandalorian with him would make me genuinely upset. Like, I would be so upset, I would be so disappointed. So I don't know, I hope Disney works things out with Pedro Pascal if there are issues, because I think he's genuinely a boon to this property overall, not even just The Mandalorian, this entire Star Wars property. And finally, this wouldn't be a valid review of The Mandalorian whatsoever without me at least mentioning the genius of Ludwig Göransson's score. The guy is a musical genius. I've already told you several times now. I talked about his genius with Black Panther, with Tenet, despite the sound editing issues, so many films that he has scored. They have incredible music, and now here he is coming up with the incredible score for The Mandalorian, and every single episode feels cinematic. Every single episode feels epic. And I genuinely think that with this, as well as his previous works, Ludwig Göransson is making his way up to the top. Like, he will be ranked amongst the John Williamses of the world, because I truly think he has the talent. The guy's a musical genius, truly. So with all of that being said, I'm going to be giving The Mandalorian season 2 an 8.5 out of 10. It is such an incredible series. I personally think that it is right up there with some of the best offerings that we've gotten from Star Wars ever. Like, true, ever, since its genesis. I love this show so much. So that's it from me. Now that I told you guys my thoughts on The Mandalorian season 2, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of this season down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch new videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!